Pre-season is officially over. The verdicts are in. But what does it mean for your draft team? Let's find out.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.
Yes, hello and welcome to the FPL Draft Zone, a show all about Draft FPL. I'm Tom Croft. I hope you're well, and I hope you enjoyed the traditional curtain raiser to the season, the Community Shield, which took place on Sunday with Arsenal beating Manchester City 3-0 at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. What does it all mean? Well, it means that officially pre-season is over. The friendly window has slammed shut, and today we're going to be taking a look at what we've learnt from all those friendlies for all 20 Premier League sides. We're going to be flagging star players, under-the-radar picks, players who played more minutes than you might ordinarily expect, and also players who maybe haven't got the game time that could mean they are not involved on the opening day. We're also going to be taking a look at some big transfer stories, which could also impact your draft picks. So let's not dilly, let's not dally. Let's get into it with a look at the champions, Arsenal, who kicked off their friendly campaign in July when most of their players were still on international duty or on holiday. In August is where you really want to look, though, with victories against Girona of Spain and Manchester City in the Community Shield yesterday as we record this. They also suffered defeats to Real Betis in Dublin, Borussia Dortmund at the Emirates, and they drew 1-1 with Cesc Fabregas's Como. First thing to flag, not that many clean sheets in there, given the absence of William Saliba. But who are the players who really stood out for the Gunners in pre-season? Well, their star man undoubtedly was their new signing, Christos Zolis, who has been starting regularly on the left-hand side and will surely start on Friday night against Coventry, particularly given the absence from the squad for the Community Shield of his only rival for that position, really, Gabriel Martinelli. Zolis has 1 goal and 6 assists so far in pre-season. He, of course, had outrageous numbers in the Belgian league last season as well. And Mikel Arteta has been singing his praises from the very day he arrived at Arsenal. So I would fully expect him to start against Coventry. And if you were drafting this week, I would be ranking him a lot higher than I was a few weeks ago. And we'll be getting on to how you can take a look at my top 150 draft rankings a little later in the show. But a little spoiler alert, he has risen significantly in those rankings on the basis of what he has done in preseason so far. Another place to take a look at, and a question mark over him, is Miles Lewis-Skelly, who has played more minutes for Arsenal in preseason than any other player. And yet there are question marks as to whether he will be involved in the starting team across the course of these opening weeks. That is because Arsenal are getting back all their international players. Declan Rice was on the bench and came on against Manchester City. Bruno Guimaraes is a new signing. Martin Odegaard played out of his skin against City. So Lewis-Skelly's place is under threat. And that's before we even talk about the likes of Martin Zubimendi and Mikel Merino. Arsenal's midfield depth is something to savour. Lewis-Skelly is a player who has been heavily linked with a move away from the club. He has seemingly, on the pitch at least, reaffirmed his commitment to the club. Mikel Arteta's been a little bit sketchy about whether or not MLS is going to stay at the club. But either way, I would not be drafting him at this stage, despite the many minutes he has had in pre-season. Should he leave the club, could be a different story. Got a lovely assist at the Millennium Stadium for Ricardo Calafiori on Sunday, but I do not expect him to start week in, week out for Arsenal. So he's not much of a real option in draft right now. Draft gamble for you, and maybe not so much as a gamble really, is Christian Mosquera. Arsenal have been heavily linked with a move for Jarell Quansah of Bayer Leverkusen, Ezri Konsa of Aston Villa, basically anyone whose name ends in "a." But Christian Mosquera also ends in "a," and I expect him to start against Coventry and play regularly in the opening few weeks of the season. Even if Arsenal confirmed a deal for Ezri Konsa today, I would not expect him to start the first few weeks of the season for the Gunners. So if you can get Christian Mosquera in a mid to late round in draft, I think you'd be doing very well. He is a solid route into that Arsenal backline, and he was quietly impressive against Manchester City in that Community Shield game. And one to watch for you is Ethan Nwaneri, who had a very good preseason, scored 2 goals for the club, looked very impressive playing in that sort of Martin Odegaard role. And yet another player like Gabriel Martinelli, who was not involved in the squad against City in the Community Shield. Lots of talk, including from Fabrizio Romano, that Nwaneri will leave the club in this transfer window. So one to keep an eye on. If he stays in the Premier League, I think he could be an excellent fifth midfield option for you, particularly in larger leagues. He has got some serious firepower in that left foot, but I do not expect him to play anywhere near enough minutes for Arsenal to make him even a consideration for your draft team. And that's despite his very impressive pre-season form. Let's take a look at Aston Villa then. They have had a plethora of pre-season friendlies, 3 in July, where they won 5-0 against Walsall, lost to Porto and Real Sociedad, and then more recently lost to Borussia Mönchengladbach, lost to Paris Saint-Germain, lost to Bayern Munich, but all obviously real high-caliber opposition, and lots of goals on their travels to Indonesia and BG Pathum United, 2-3-1 wins there. As for their star performer, it's Brian Maggio, 5 goals for the young striker, including a goal against PSG in the Super Cup. He is, however, now injured, which is probably good news for owners of Ollie Watkins, who may have slightly become a little concerned that Maggio might steal minutes from him. As it is, Maggio is absent and therefore not an option in draft right now. Ian Maatsen played a whole lot of minutes for Villa, and given that they have sold Lucas Digne to PSG, seems like a shoe-in at left back. Villa's defence, not exactly the strongest though, so he's not someone I would be overly keen on despite his impressive minutes in pre-season. A draft gamble for you though, Emi Buendia. Impressive last season. He was Aston Villa's 3rd highest scorer by the end of the campaign. He's got 2 goals and 4 assists in pre-season and has really lit up Villa's pre-season campaign. And of course, one to watch, Ezri Konsa. We just spoke about him. Heavily linked with a move to Arsenal, heavily linked with a move to Liverpool. Apparently, personal terms are agreed with the Gunners. It's the transfer fee that's the sticking point. Aston Villa are expecting £60 million. Arsenal are offering no more, at the moment at least, than £35 million. So some way to go before that deal gets done. But if you could get Konsa very late on in draft, and he does make that move to the Gunners, then you have got yourself a brilliant route into that Arsenal backline for very little effort on draft night. Bournemouth, well, they have not had as many friendlies as some of the other sides that we're going to be touching upon today. They started in July with wins against St. Pauli and Augsburg before they battered Genoa 10-1, drew with Real Betis 2-2, and then most recently lost 2-1 to Mainz of Germany. Their star man in pre-season has been their Brazilian striker, Evan Nielsen, who's finished with 3 goals and 2 assists in those friendly games. Ben Gannon-Doak also did well. He got 2 goals in pre-season. The question is, will he play? There is so much competition for places in those attacking areas for Bournemouth. I mean, Adley is another player who can occupy those wing spaces as well. And of course, now they're under Marco Rose, there may not be space for wingers at all. So Gannon-Doak's minutes could be restricted as a result, unless, of course, they play him in a more central role. Certainly a talented player, has done very well for Scotland as well. Came from Liverpool to Bournemouth for a not insignificant transfer fee. I'm sure their fans would like to see him get more minutes, but again, not really a draft option right now. A draft gamble for you, though, is Justin Kluivert, who's got 3 goals and 1 assist in pre-season. Finished the 2024-2025 campaign with 12 goals and 6 assists, including in that campaign a hat-trick of penalties against Newcastle United. Last season, he was hit by injury and really didn't get the minutes he would have wanted. But if he can stay fit this campaign and impress the new manager, there's no reason why he will not play regularly. And he is a player that not many people will be looking at for their draft sides until that 5th midfield spot. So if you're struggling to fill that 5th midfield berth, you could do a lot worse than pick up Justin Kluivert and see if he can become a regular under Marco Rose. One to watch as well is Daniel Jebison, who's got 2 goals and 3 assists in pre-season for Bournemouth. And with Enes Unal leaving the club, it does open up a space for Jebison in that first team squad. Marco Rose has said he will be part of the first team this season. The only problem for him is Evan Nielsen's form. We've already said that he's been the star man of pre-season so far. And also the signing of Alvaro Rodriguez. So Jebison unlikely to feature regularly in the first team unless there are injuries to the 2 forwards who are ahead of him in the pecking order, Evan Nielsen and Alvaro Rodriguez. And that is also before you take into consideration that Ryan could also fill one of those 2 striker spots for the Cherries. As for Brentford, again, minimal friendlies for them, really. Started in July with a 3-2 win over AFC Wimbledon. Their most recent result was a 7-0 shellacking of Eintracht Frankfurt. Starmen for them, Dango Utara. He's got 2 goals and 3 assists in pre-season. Question mark over the new signing Jadon Anthony and whether or not he will play regularly. Again, it looks like it's going to be between Utara Anthony and Sharda for those two winger spots. Anthony, as I said, 2 goals in pre-season. Last season for Burnley, playing in obviously a pretty poor side. Finished the season still with 8 goals and 4 assists. So there's no reason to think that Anthony could find a way into this Brentford first team. Kevin Sharda has been linked with a move away from the club. So that's one to keep an eye on. If I was a betting man, I would say he would probably start the season on the bench, but he is certainly one as a draft manager to keep an eye on, because I think he will eventually break into this Brentford side. And I think he could be a fairly solid pick as a 5th midfielder. Draft gamble, maybe not a draft gamble really, is Mamadou Sangare, who averaged 14.2 defensive contributions per 90 last season in the French league. He's also got his first goal for the club in pre-season. Technically a very gifted player as well. Strong, aggressive in the tackle. Should be a multiple route to points. And I think he's going to start week in, week out from the outset for Brentford, despite some people saying he may have to fight his way into that team. I think he will be a regular from the get-go. And one to watch, Mikael Damsgaard, who's got 2 goals and 2 assists in pre-season, picked up 8 attacking returns last season, but the season before was his strongest ever in the Premier League, finished with 12 attacking returns in 2024-2025. We saw how well Martin Odegaard played in the Community Shield yesterday. Well, I like to think of Mikael Damsgaard as Martin Odegaard light, the Aldi Odegaard, the little Martin Odegaard. But Mikael Damsgaard, certainly a very technically capable and tactically gifted player who is capable of getting goals and creating them for others. Brighton, well, their most recent result was a 1-0 win over Bologna. They also beat fellow Italian opposition in the form of Roma 3-0. They beat Strasbourg 4-3, and they beat Wickham way back in July 4-1. Lots to talk about with Brighton. First up is the striker situation. They have, of course, lost Danny Welbeck this summer to Chelsea. The likelihood is that Jorginho Rutter will start up front. He has been their star man in pre-season with 2 goals and 1 assist. I think anyone who's seen Jorginho Rutter play will think of him as perhaps a frustrating forward option, not necessarily the sort of player who will score when he is presented with a decent opportunity. But then you could argue the same could have been said of Danny Welbeck, certainly until last season. So maybe he will step up this season. Now he is first choice. Will he play? Well, that's a question for Ibrahim Osman, who has played very well in preseason for Brighton. He's a winger, got 2 goals and 1 assist across their friendly campaign. Again, not really a serious draft option at the moment, but one to keep an eye on if he does break into the side, particularly with the news that Yankuba Minte is going to miss a significant amount of time through injury. Karim Matoma is, of course, injury prone, or certainly has been over the last few seasons. It looks like De Kuyper is going to start on the left-hand side, but that does not necessarily mean that he will stay there with Ibrahim Osman breathing down his neck. So certainly one to keep an eye on, and one that not many other draft managers will be aware of. A draft gamble for you is Luka Vuskovic, their big new money signing from Spurs. He is a central defender. He picked up 11.7 defensive contributions last season in Germany. That was per 90. If he can repeat that, he'll be a very solid pick indeed. Some question marks over whether Vuskovic will start from the get-go for Brighton. I actually think he will. And if he does, I think he would be a very astute pickup as a 5th defensive option for your draft side. And one to watch is Jack Hinchelwood, who this week has been linked with a move to Manchester United and Arsenal. 4 goals and 5 assists in 20 starts for him last season. He is playing in the number 10 role for Brighton in pre-season. A lot of talk about some of his midfield rivals, Pascal Gross and Gomez as well, both very popular in FPL. I actually think Jack Hinchelwood is a bit of a hidden gem here. He's got 1 goal in pre-season. He is playing furthest forward. And given the fact that they do not really have an out-and-out forward, I think if you're picking up a Brighton attacker, he is the man to go for. Jack Hinchelwood, for me, a very under-the-radar gem for your draft side, and another great pickup as a 5th midfielder on draft night. Chelsea, well, they have had a whole lot of football in August, losing to Spurs and Juventus, beating AC Milan and Real Sociedad, and they drew 3-3 with a team called Johor Doral Tazim, and I'm almost certain I have butchered that name. As for them, their star man, well, there can be no doubt, João Pedro, 7 goals and 2 assists for him in pre-season. If you can get him in as your first pick on draft night, and you are in the top 4 or 5 picks on draft night, you have done very well for yourself, and you've also solved that striker conundrum before anyone else has to deal with that certain issue. Will he play? Jamie Gittins is the man we are going to focus on here. He's got 2 goals and 2 assists in pre-season for the Blues. I do not think he is guaranteed a start, but again, a player to keep an eye on as the season progresses, because if he is a player that Xabi Alonso warms to, he will get significant minutes. And a draft gamble, Marco Palestra, who got the third most minutes of any Chelsea player in preseason. A lot of talk over whether or not he will be a regular for Chelsea. I think if you look at preseason as a whole, you have to say he will be, because he has got the third most minutes. And he is a player who offers great attacking potential from the back for Chelsea. So Marco Palestra, another player who in our draft rankings is going to be rising through those ranks off the back of pre-season. One to watch for the Blues, Enzo Fernandez, heavily linked with a move to Manchester City. Chelsea have said that now a deadline has passed for Fernandez's sale. He will be staying at the club. But of course, yesterday the news broke that Rodri is set to sign for Barcelona, and that could put into play another move for Enzo Fernandez. So Fernandez, one of those players who, if you've already done your draft, maybe you weren't looking at with too much seriousness for fear that he might move abroad. I think now the likelihood is he will move to the Etihad. And if he moves to the Etihad, he suddenly becomes a very real draft option again. Coventry City will be looking forward to their first Premier League action for a long, long time. They have had fixtures in July and August. They lost to Wimbledon in July and drew with Northampton. Most recently, they've beaten Monaco 2-0 and Espanyol 3-1. Star man for them is their new signing in goal, Carl Rushworth, who's cost the club £22.5 million. He comes from Brighton. He is a player who, in those very, very late 11th, 12th rounds, you can pick up for peanuts on draft night if you need a goalkeeper. He is likely to fill the void left by Robin Ruffs last year of a newly promoted keeper who is going to be extremely busy and therefore will pick up a lot of save points. So certainly not one to discount just because he plays for Coventry. Questions over who will play up front for Coventry. Ellis Sims has started more friendlies than any other forward, and he had a strong end to last season. 13 goals he finished the campaign with in the Championship. Haji Wright scored more than him. He got 17 goals, but he is now nursing an injury, which gives Sims a chance to start up front on Friday against Arsenal and possibly keep his place if he performs. However, if you scroll down there to the one to watch on screen, Taiwo Awoniyi has just signed for the club from Nottingham Forest. He got 4 goals and 2 assists in just 480 minutes last season, which equates to the minutes equivalent of 5.3 games. So 6 attacking returns in the equivalent of 5.3 games. He is likely to become their first choice starting forward, I imagine. But right now, I think the shirt is probably Ellis Sims's for Friday night. And a draft gamble, Tatsushiro Sakamoto, a winger for Coventry. He got a goal against Espanyol in pre-season, 18 goals and 11 assists in 116 games for Coventry so far. And of course, a game to focus on, both if you're looking at Coventry forwards or Coventry midfielders, is that whole game in game week 2, where they are at home to their fellow newly promoted rivals. Crystal Palace, they've finished up their preseason campaign with a 2-1 win over Fulham. They've also played Lens and lost, Bromley and lost. They've drawn with Famalicão 0-0, and they started their preseason campaign with a 5-1 rout of Swindon back in July. Their star man in preseason has been Eddie Nketiah, and he is someone that no one is talking about as a possible forward option. Obviously, they have Jean-Philippe Mateta. They also have Jorgen Strand-Larsen. They've spent a lot of money on Strand-Larsen. Mateta has just gone to the World Cup with France. He's barely played a minute of pre-season. There's no question that Eddie Nketiah is going to be the freshest, most fittest forward of that lot going into the new season. And Crystal Palace fans, who have been very heavily critical of Nketiah since he joined the club from Arsenal, have been singing his praises online for his pre-season form. So particularly in larger leagues, when striking options are going to be dwindling very fast indeed, I think you could do a lot worse than look at Eddie Nketiah. And it would not surprise me one bit if he actually got the nod under Pierre Sage for their season opener ahead of the likes of Strand-Larsen and Mateta, purely from the fact that he's played so many more minutes. And of course, Nketiah, if he plays, more than capable of getting a goal. Will he play? Well, that's a question for Mateus Franca. He's had another very good pre-season, cost the club a lot of money, spent last season on loan at Vasco in Brazil, where he got just 1 goal in 27 games. He's got 3 goals in pre-season, though, including a penalty. Could be an option, one to keep an eye on. Again, I certainly wouldn't draft him from the outset, but just one to have on your radar as the opening weeks of the season progress, because he could be a very astute pickup if he does get the minutes that he's hoping for. A draft gamble is Oscar Mingueza. He has joined the club from Celta Vigo, where he got 7 goals and 15 assists in 147 games. He can play absolutely anywhere across the back line. He can play at right back, left back, or centre back. And with the news that Daniel Munoz could be on the verge of leaving the club for, by the way, a bargain fee of about £25 million. He's been linked with Spurs and Everton. Mingueza could fill in that right back slot until their new signing who they brought in yesterday gets up to speed. Alternatively, he could fill in on the left. He is a very attacking fullback in the mould of Daniel Munoz. So if Munoz does depart, Mingueza could be a shoo-in for that Palace starting 11. Everton, well, their most recent victory in pre-season came in their final pre-season friendly when they beat Newcastle 3-1. They lost to Stuttgart in August, beat Hamburg, and then all sorts of results in July for them. A shellacking of Dundee in Scotland, a 0-0 draw with Bolton, and a 1-0 defeat to Stoke. Their star man has been Tierno Barry, who may well have cemented his place as Everton's starting striker as a result, ahead of Beto. Finished pre-season with 3 goals and 1 assist, got 8 goals last season. Very decent third striker option if you can get him in the later rounds on your draft night. Will he play? Well, that's a question for Merlin Roll, who's got 414 minutes in pre-season for the Toffees, the most of all players. He is a German midfielder who has been filling in at right back. We just said Everton have been heavily linked with a move for Daniel Munoz. Well, they haven't got him yet, and that could see Merlin Roll play at right back from the outset, and that should see him following the likes of Max Vifa by getting quite a lot of DEFCON in that fullback slot as a midfielder. 1 goal and 9.5 DEFCON per 90 in pre-season for him. And as I said, he's playing out of position at right back more often than not. Draft gamble for you is Michael Keane. Obviously, James Tarkowski is going to feature very high on a lot of managers' lists as they're drafting defenders. Michael Keane will not feature anywhere near as highly because he's not guaranteed a place in that starting 11. The thought process is that Jared Branthwaite will partner Tarkowski at the back for Everton. But the truth is that Jared Branthwaite is cursed by injury and has been really since he's broken into the Everton side. And if that continues, then there's no doubt that David Moyes will fall back on Michael Keane as a first choice option. And last season, we saw that Keane can offer decent DEFCON returns as well as a goal scoring threat. And one to watch is Tyreek George, who joined the club on loan from Chelsea last season and has since made his move permanent. Everton, of course, had Jack Grealish as part of their squad last season before he picked up an injury. Grealish played in the Community Shield for Manchester City, which suggests that Enzo Maresca may want to keep him around at the Etihad. And that opens up a spot on the left-hand side for Tyreek George, who has looked very decent in pre-season. Again, maybe not for now, unless you're in a 16-man league, but certainly one to keep an eye on as a 5th midfield option if he bangs for Everton. Fulham, well, they finished their campaign with a 1-0 win over Stuttgart. They've also drawn with Malaga and lost to Palace in August. They also featured 3 times in friendlies in July, playing Norwich, Al Ahly and Farense, winning just 1 of those games. Their star man has been Alex Iwobi, Mr. Reliable, 2 goals and 2 assists for him in pre-season. He got 7 attacking returns in 29 games last season for the Cottagers. He is certain to play, and if you pick him up as a 5th midfielder in a larger league, I think he'll probably serve you well. Joachim Andersen is a player who did very well last season under Marco Silva, ended the campaign with 329 defensive contributions and earned himself 40 points. All sorts of question marks over whether he will be part of the Fulham squad this season. He will miss game week 1 through suspension, so he's not someone you should be looking at on draft night. He's a watch and wait for me. Let's see what happens when he comes back from suspension. And if he starts, certainly one to try and pick up on the waivers. Draft gamble for you, Josh King, who showed all sorts of ability when he played last year. 1 goal and 3 assists in 15 starts for him last season. He'll be hoping to kick on. Again, a player who I wouldn't be looking at on draft night, but one just to keep on your radar. If Fulham surprise a few, Alvaro Arbeloa, of course, the new manager, lots of question marks over whether or not he's going to be capable of doing the business in West London. But if he shows himself to be capable, maybe Josh King will become an option for us all. And one to watch, Oscar Bobb, who cost the club quite a lot of money last season from Manchester City. And he showed glimpses of his talent, 11 starts and 2 assists last season. He's picked up 1 assist in preseason, also played at the World Cup, of course. So a very talented player with a lot of potential. Will he realize it this season under Arbeloa? Certainly not for draft night, but again, just keep it under your hat as a potential option if he bangs in those opening first few weeks. Hull will be going into the Premier League season hoping that it's not going to go the way that everybody on the planet thinks it's going to go. Pre-season has not been kind to them either. They did all right in July with wins against Konyaspor and Rizeaspor, 3-0 and 2-1 respectively. But in August, A 1-1 draw with Kasim Panzer, a 2-0 defeat to Eintracht Frankfurt, and a draw with OGC Nice. Their star man has been Ollie McBurney. Obvious pickup for you if you're in need of a striker. The only one really from Hull that I would go anywhere near. He's got 2 pre-season goals and was, of course, their top scorer last season. John Egan. Well, there's a question over whether he will play because Hull have invested heavily in their defence. He made 39 starts last season in the Championship and he averaged over 10 DEFCON per game. So if he does start, he will be busy and there's no reason why he can't replicate those defensive contribution returns. A draft gamble is another defender, Nobel Mendy, who the club have signed from Rayo Vallecano. While he was in Spain, he averaged 11.37 defensive contributions per 90. And like Egan, if he plays, and I think he will play, he'll be a busy boy, so should continue to pick up DEFCON. Probably won't pick up many clean sheets, though. And one to watch is Elliot Stroud, a midfielder who they have signed from Mjällby. He played 109 games in Sweden, got 27 goals and 14 assists. Could be the new Freddie Ljungberg, a Swedish winger coming from Sweden to England to devastating effect. Or he could be more like Kim Kallstrom with a broken back. We shall see. Ipswich, well, they had one game in July, which they lost to Osasuna. More recently, they've beaten Union Berlin 4-2, Rayo Vallecano 3-0, and Le Havre 1-0. In fact, they won all 5 of their friendlies in August. Their star man has been their new striker, Emerson, who took a while to warm up, but in the latter stages of preseason, started to find the net and have an attacking impact wherever he played. 2 goals and 2 assists for him in preseason. Again, like Ollie McBurney, if you're looking at Ipswich players on draft night, he's really the only one to look at. Will he play? Jack Clark, very good last season for Ipswich, finished the campaign in the Championship with 16 goals. 6 of those were penalties, but he's got serious competition for his place on the wing for Ipswich with Jaden Philogene and Fatawu, their new signing from Leicester, offering fierce competition for his place. One to keep an eye on, see if he can transfer that talent he showed in the Championship to the top flight and see if he can retain his place in the first team. A draft gamble is Florentino Luis, who they have just signed from Burnley. He hit DEFCON in 14 of 25 starts for the Clarets last season. And one to watch is Dyson Maeda, the new signing from Celtic. 7 goals and 5 assists for him in Scotland last season. Technically, probably the most gifted player in Ipswich's ranks. But it's Ipswich, right? It's going to be difficult for the Tractor Boys. They're going to struggle in the Premier League, you would think. And I would be surprised if Dyson Maeda can match those numbers in the Premier League. Leeds United, well, they finished their campaign in pre-season with a 1-1 draw with Manchester United. Prior to that, they'd beaten Liverpool and RB Leipzig in August. So pretty impressive results for them. And Starman has been Dominic Calvert-Lewin with 3 goals and 2 assists in pre-season. He finished last season with 16 attacking returns, and he certainly looks like he's going to hit the ground running again this season. Question marks over who will play alongside him in those attacking areas. One of those question marks surrounds Brendan Aronson, who's got 2 goals and 2 assists in pre-season. Finished last season with 4 goals and 8 assists. I would expect him to start, but it depends if under Daniel Farke they play 2 attacking midfielders behind Calvert-Lewin and go slightly more narrow than they did last year. If that's the case, then it could be Okafor and Wilson, their new signing from Fulham, and that could mean there's no place for Brendan Aronson. But I would expect Aronson to start in game week 1. And in larger leagues, I think he's probably worth a pickup as a 5th midfielder. Draft gamble is their new defensive behemoth, Tarik Muharemovic, who contributed 15 defensive contributions in a recent friendly against Sunderland and was a DEFCON beast in Italy last season. And our one to watch is James Justin, who got the 2nd most minutes in pre-season of any Leeds player. He made 21 starts last season. And for those old school FPL players, you will remember what an impact he had at Leicester when he really found his form and his feet in the top flight. If he can go back to those levels, he could be a very decent bit of business for you. But again, not one for me, at least, for draft night, not unless you are in a very large league. Liverpool, well, they finished their campaign in pre-season with a couple of games against Como, a behind closed doors match, which finished 0-0, and a 2-0 win as well. They lost to Monaco 3-2. They lost to Leeds 4-2. They beat Wrexham and they beat Sunderland. And their star man has been Dominic Szoboszlai, who's got a goal and 2 assists. Lots of FPL managers in the classic game very high on the Hungarian. He got 13 attacking returns last season, and he should feature in your top 20 ideal picks on draft night. Will he play? Will Rio Umgamoa play? That is the question. He's had 3 attacking returns in 5 starts last season. He's featured prominently in pre-season. He is extremely young, but he's also extremely gifted. And given the fact that they are being heavily linked with a move for Bradley Barklow, but that move has not yet transpired, it wouldn't surprise me if Ngamoa got a start in their opener against Newcastle, where, of course, he scored last season. So he certainly shouldn't be fazed by playing at St James's Park. Draft gamble for you is Victor Munoz. A lot of talk out of Liverpool that he can actually play as a striker as well as on the wing. Got 6 goals and 2 assists last season. If Alexander Isak gets any sort of injury, it will be interesting to see who replaces him up front. And the rumor is that it could be Victor Munoz, particularly if our one to watch, Cody Gakpo, leaves the club. He is being heavily linked with a move to Spurs. I would be very keen to draft Cody Gakpo on draft night because I think he will get a lot of minutes if he stays at Anfield. And if he doesn't and goes to Spurs, I think they're going to start him up front. I think they will play him ahead of Richarlison. I think he will be their main attacking outlet. So Gakpo, for me, is a great player to watch and one to draft early if you can, maybe the 3rd round, if you can hold out that long. And Victor Munoz, a draft gamble, purely because he's got the ability. He is a World Cup winner. And who knows, maybe he will get more minutes than others consider him to get based on preseason and his preseason form and the talk around him. Manchester City, well, they finished their preseason campaign with a 3-0 defeat to Arsenal in the Community Shield. Prior to that, they beat Atletico Madrid 3-1, the K-League All-Stars 3-1, and they drawn with Inter Milan. Their star man has been Antoine Semenyo. A lot of question marks over whether or not he can replicate the form he showed last season in a City shirt. He's got 5 assists in preseason, 23 attacking returns last campaign in 37 games. I think he is going to have a very strong season again. I know lots of people are having their doubts about Semenyo, but for me, I think everything that's coming out of City from Maresca is that he rates Semenyo highly. Semenyo is enjoying playing under the Italian, and I think he will feature prominently throughout the season. And anything good that Manchester City do, he will be a part of. Question marks over Phil Foden's role this season. Maresca's come out and said Phil is very important. I know how good he is. Positive signs in the Community Shield that he started. He was replaced in the second half by Ryan Cherky, but had a couple of shots, tested David Raya from range, looked a little bit more like his old self. If he can rediscover the form that he's shown over previous seasons, he could be an excellent draft asset. But for me, I think that's a bit of a gamble. I wouldn't be looking to draft Phil Foden too early. I'd certainly pick him up mid-rounds, but before that, I would be steering clear just because I think there's question marks over his minutes and his ability to find his form again. A draft gamble is Abdulkadir Kusanov, who started again against Arsenal, played a lot of minutes in pre-season as well. Maresca's been very positive about him. He says, I believe Kusanov has a very high ceiling. Added to the fact that Nunes had to pull out of the game yesterday with an injury, I think Kusanov's starting place for Manchester City is assured. You'd have to hope that defensive they look a little more solid as the season progresses than they did in Cardiff on Sunday. But I think Kusanov will play a big role this season. And he's not maybe someone that everyone's eyes are targeting on draft night. I think most people will be looking at Vardiol and O'Reilly. So Kusanov, you might be able to sneak into your side late on. And want to watch his Omar Mamouche, who got 2 goals in preseason, came off the bench to replace Erling Haaland yesterday. City didn't create a lot, but Mamouche is certainly capable of scoring goals wherever he plays. And whether or not he stays at the Etihad or goes elsewhere in England or abroad, I suppose there is always that gamble. I do think he is worth a punt as a 3rd striker option late on, in the hope that he will earn that move, heavily linked with a move to Spurs, of course. Manchester United finished their preseason with a 4-2 defeat at home to AC Milan. Prior to that, they'd drawn with Leeds and PSG. They beaten Atletico Madrid and Rosenborg and lost 1-0 to Wrexham way back in July when half their team were missing. Their star man has been Brian Mbeumo, who's got 3 goals and 1 assist in preseason. Picked up 14 attacking returns last campaign as well. Question marks over Marcus Rashford's role at the club. He got a 30-minute cameo in that defeat to Milan over the weekend. Looked okay as well. I think most Manchester United fans were pretty positive about his performance when he came off the bench. He's got a lot of competition for his place, of course, including our draft gamble, Amad Diallo, who got 7 attacking returns in 27 games last season, which was a bit of a disappointing return in truth. He got 16 the season before in 2024-2025. There's also the likes of Cunha, who can play on the wing as well. And Patrick Dorgu has been a very popular pick in pre-season too. So the likes of Rashford, Dorgu, Diallo and Cunha are all going to face a battle for minutes. But Rashford's probably worth picking up as a very late round pick, purely because he may well earn a move to another Premier League side. And if he does, as he showed at Aston Villa, he can be a very capable player. And if he stays at Old Trafford and forces his way into Michael Carrick's thinking as a first choice option, he has shown in the past that he's more than capable of having a very good campaign for the Red Devils. And one to watch is Andre Santos, who will be looking to replace the goals that United have lost with the loss of Casemiro. He's left the club. Santos, his Brazilian compatriot, has come in. And it's easy to forget, given that he played minimal minutes for Chelsea last season, that he actually got 14 goals and assists in his final season on loan at Strasbourg. So if he can replicate anything like that form this season, he is a player who could really be a decent pickup for your draft side and someone that nobody is talking about. Again, not one I would keep an eye on for draft night, but I would absolutely be honing in on him in those first couple of weeks of the season. Take a look at his DEFCON numbers, take a look at his goal threat, take a look at his expected goals and expected goals involvements in those opening games for Manchester United, particularly given the caliber of the opposition they're up against. And if there's any sign that he could do the sort of things that Casemiro did last season, he could be a very clever pickup for your draft side. Newcastle United finished their pre-season with a 1-1 draw with Strasbourg over the weekend. They also lost to Bayer Leverkusen and Everton. In August, they also beat Valencia 2-1. Back in July, they had a couple of local derbies against Darlington and Gateshead. They beat Darlington 3-0. They drew with Gateshead 1-1, and they lost to Bristol City 4-1. All sorts of change at Newcastle. They've lost a lot of players. They've lost their manager. Who knows what sort of a side we're going to encounter over the course of the campaign from St James's Park. One thing's for sure, though, Harvey Barnes will have a part to play. He is the star man of pre-season with 2 goals. He got 8 attacking returns in 19 starts last season, and I would expect him to become a regular under the new man. Question mark over Bazumana Touré's impact in the club from the get-go. The truth is, he's been fantastic in pre-season, and he was pretty good for Hoffenheim last year. That's why Newcastle paid the money to bring him to the club. 5 goals and 12 assists in Germany. He is rapid, technically gifted, and more than capable of getting involved in offensive actions. Nobody talking about Touré as a draft option, but again, as a 5th midfield pickup and a bit of a left field pump, I think Touré could represent really decent business for your draft side. So if you are doing your draft night and you're desperately scratching around looking for a midfielder as that 5th midfield pick who could make an impact on your draft side, he is 100% worth a gamble, in my opinion. A draft gamble for you is Johan Wissa, who's got 2 goals in pre-season and has looked decent as Newcastle's starting striker. Osula played and scored over the weekend, which does complicate matters. Wissa had a stinker of a first season at St James's Park, just 1 goal, having moved from Brentford where he was so prolific. But he actually scored 3 World Cup goals for DR Congo. So he's shown he hasn't lost his shooting boots, and I would expect him to have a much bigger impact this season. And one to watch, not yet at the club, but being heavily linked with a move to the club, is João Paulinho, who spent last season on loan at Spurs from Bayern Munich. He got 126 points last campaign playing for a really struggling North London side, and he still picked up 12.4 DEFCON per 90 on average. So if he comes into Newcastle to shore out that midfield and add a bit of experience, which it looks like they desperately need, having lost the likes of Tonali and Guimaraes, I think he could be a very astute 5th midfield option as well. Not yet at the club, but the minute he makes that move, do not rule him out as a decent draft option. Let's move on to Nottingham Forest, who have had a very busy pre-season. In August, they beat Brest and Bayer Leverkusen 2-0 and 2-1 respectively. At the start of the month, there were defeats to Udinese and Barcelona. And then in July, with a mix-and-match team, there were all sorts of games against local rivals Notts County, Blackburn, Victoria, Sporting Lisbon and Portimonense SAD. Their star man in pre-season has been Igor Jesus, who's got 4 goals for the club and is likely to be their starting striker come game week 1, although Chris Wood did play and score at the weekend, which will complicate matters a little. Question mark over the future of Arnaud Kalimwendo, who cost quite a lot of money a year ago and came with a great reputation. 17 goals and 4 assists in 2024-2025 in Ligue 1 for Stade Rennais. He's got 3 goals in pre-season as well, so maybe he will come into Oliver Glasner's thinking at Nottingham Forest. A draft gamble, we just touched upon him. Chris Wood, very old now, has had serious injury problems over the last 12 months, but did play in the World Cup, did play at the weekend, and could return to his 2024-2025 form where he was so prolific. If he does, what a bit of business that would be. The truth is, though, Forest striker options are very difficult to call. I would rank them as Jesus, Wood, Kalimwendo at the moment. I think Kalimwendo in all likelihood will leave the club. But if he somehow sticks around, it would not surprise me if he broke into that first team and became a regular starting striker for the club, because I think they're all much of a muchness, if I'm being totally honest. And one to watch, Nico Williams. He's been playing very, very high up in pre-season. Had a good season last season as well. Contributes goals, assists, and defensive contributions as well. So a jack of all trades and very much one to keep on your radar when you're drafting those latter stage defenders. Let's move on to Sunderland, who have had a mixed bag of results in pre-season. 2-1 win against Ron and a 2-0 win against Lens in August. They also lost 4-1 to the same side, Lens, in August as well. And they beat Wrexham 1-0 in July. A 5-1 win over York City, a 4-2 defeat to Liverpool, and a 1-0 defeat to Leeds United. Their star man has been Enzo Lafay, who's finished pre-season with 3 goals. He is, of course, probably the star pick of Sunderland, full stop. So if you're looking at getting a player from the Black Cats, look no further than the Italian international. Question mark over Timur Tutierov, who, I hear you say, well, he's actually played quite a lot of minutes in pre-season and has looked pretty good. He can play on the right-hand side or on the left-hand side. And Reggie Labrie has said he is the profile to play right or left, and he will be around the squad for sure. So again, absolutely not for draft night, but just one for your little black book of potential pickups further into the season. Keep an eye on the name Tutierov. If he breaks into the Sunderland side and makes a positive impact, he will be on your radar before anyone else's. A draft gamble is Dan Ballard, 2 goals and 2 assists for him last season, picked up 12 bonus points in the process. A decent option at the back when you're drafting your 5th defender. And one to watch is Chris Rigg, who Sunderland fans are very high on. 1 goal and 1 assist for him in pre-season. Another winger option should they need it. He and Tutierov, much of a muchness really. Certainly not draft assets on draft night, but players to keep an eye on as the season progresses. And let's move on to our final team, Spurs. They started in July with wins against MK Dons and Auckland FC, 1-0 and 2-0 respectively. And then in August, they beat Chelsea, drew with Getafe, beat Hoffenheim, and then drew 2-2 with the same opposition in a behind closed doors friendly. Their star man in pre-season has been the Brazilian striker Richarlison, who's got 3 goals. He actually got 11 goals and 4 assists in 20 starts last season. So when he's fit, he does have an impact on proceedings. Spurs fans not particularly high on him, but certainly a player who can make a difference. And Spurs yet to strengthen in forward areas. And with Solanke injured again, Richarlison will get the nod for game week 1. So very much a player worth considering as a striker option on draft night. Question marks over Marcus Senesi's role at the club. He's joined on a free transfer from Bournemouth, 52 DEFCON points last season, 175 defensive contributions overall. He was a DEFCON monster last year. Question marks over whether he will start. Those Spurs have a plethora of central defensive options. I like Senesi as a player. I like him as a draft option, but I would only draft him late now. I think my view on him has rescinded a little bit given the sheer competition for places at Tottenham. Draft gamble for you, and one that I think, again, not many people are talking about, but I think he could do a serious job for your draft side, is Matthias Tell, who started to show his ability at the back end of last season under Roberto De Zerbi, and he's taken that form into preseason as well. Finished preseason with a goal and 3 assists, and De Zerbi's been glowing about him, really. He says he has a big, big talent, and he is an important player. I think he's going to get a lot of minutes this season. He's scored from free kicks in preseason as well, so he could be across a few set pieces too. And he's got the background and the firepower to make a difference. They did not spend a pretty penny on him from Bayern Munich for nothing. He is a gifted player, and maybe we will see that if Spurs can get a grip of themselves under their new manager. They've had a bit of a tumultuous time over the last few seasons, but if De Zerbi can wrangle something out of this side, maybe it will be to the benefit of Matthias Tell. And again, decent 5th midfield pick, I would say, on draft night. And one to watch purely from an injury point of view is Dominic Solanke, who showed so much talent in his final season at Bournemouth. That's what prompted Spurs to pay big bucks for him. He has been injured pretty much ever since. Did have a spell at the back end of last season where he was fit. He's picked up another knock now. We don't know how long he's going to be out for. He's a tricky one. He's probably worth drafting on draft night and hoping he can rediscover his fitness, but obviously a huge gamble, particularly with Richarlison already at the club and Cody Gakpo strongly linked with a move to Spurs. So that is your preseason guide to all 20 Premier League clubs. And of course, that preseason guide will have affected our top 150 draft rankings. But you can take a look at those latest rankings if you sign up with Draft FC for 1 month free using our unique referral code. It's on screen now. We will put it on the show notes as well. I will read it just once this time. It is https://draftfc.co.uk/?ref FPL Draft Zone. If you sign up there, you will get access to our top 150 draft rankings, as well as Draft FC's and many other draft content creators' rankings. And hopefully that will serve you well going into your draft night. Right. If you like this video, please, like this video and subscribe to the channel so you never miss an episode. Please also, if you're listening to this in audio form, give us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you use and some nice words of encouragement in the comments. It all helps with that mysterious thing we call the algorithm. And don't forget to follow us on social as well. We're on X and on Instagram at FPL Draft Zone. And we're on Blue Sky as well at fpldraftzone.bsky.social. But that is it for us for today. Until next time, enjoy your football. Good luck as the season starts in just a matter of days now. And bye for now.
This is the FPL Draft Zone, your fantasy team's best signing of the season.